what is some of the advantages you feel like you have as a freelancer? And then what is some of the maybe disadvantages you feel like you have as a freelancer?
Hey, friendo, Steve here.
Hey, Larson.
And you're watching Tom Talks Rubbish.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talks Rubbish, and stand back for another interview. This time, I'm joined by Tom Colohue, a freelance wrestling writer and the owner of the Tom Colohue YouTube channel. So welcome to the show, Tom.
Happy to be here. We finally get a glorious opportunity for two Toms to talk rubbish.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really excited to do this. So if we take this back to the beginning, where does Tom first discover wrestling?
Ooh, okay. So it was 1998. I'm going to betray my age a little bit here. I was 10 years old. I came down from my bedroom to discover that there was a wrestling match on TV. Now, here in the UK, as I'm sure you are very much aware, but back in that time, it was all on Sky Sports.
Yep.
And Monday Night Raw would be shown on Friday. So we'd never got it anywhere close to live. And then we'd essentially get a tape of it on the following Monday. So we were a week behind. And I still distinctly remember that first match and what got me into wrestling. I remember seeing Ken Shamrock attacking Owen Hart. I remember seeing the Road Dogg get hurt. Well, actually, turns out it was definitely a concussion. I remember seeing the Undertaker's entrance. I remember the winner, the Big Red Machine Kane, just walking around, throwing out chokeslams, barely involved. Kane caught my eye. He really did. And this was a match that had everyone. It was a four corners tag team title match. Everyone was involved. Triple H and DX was there for quite a long time as well. Triple H eventually became my favorite, as it were. And I got to say, after that, the family was hooked and I just was along for the ride.
So with your family being hooked, did it sort of become like a tradition then? Like that Friday's Raw would be showing and it's like, let's all sit down and watch this together. Was it that sort of thing?
It was. It, as I say, we'd get the tape on the Monday. So we'd sit down on a Monday and we'd watch it. We'd pick up the tape on a Saturday when we go over to a friend's house and watch Doctor Who and have a fry up. And we had a lot of little traditions. Now, admittedly, they were mostly based around a TV. What can I say? Very simple folk.
Yeah.
But it's one of those where you enjoy some Doctor Who, you eventually get yourself some wrestling, and everyone just sits down and shuts up and eats the dinner and watches people beat the crap out of each other.
Fair enough. So how does your wrestling fandom evolve? We're talking sort of peak Attitude Era here. Then how do you sort of become like to get involved with Pro Wrestling Talks? I imagine there's a lot of steps in between that.
There's actually 2 or 3 big steps and not that many otherwise. So I used to live across the country from where I do now. I live in Blackpool now. I used to live in Yorkshire, a little horrible town called Hull, which is a horrible, horrible place. What can I say? Anyway, because I was living there and I had family over here, we eventually, because we were in a council house, the house was going to get knocked down. I was just about to turn 13 and we were told basically, get out, good luck. So we moved across the country to Blackpool and we lost the ability to get hold of the tapes. We didn't have Sky. We couldn't watch wrestling. So I sort of forgot about wrestling entirely for years, and I mean a long time. So that was in 2001. Eventually, I moved into the house I'm in now, which I think was 2015. It was June. I'd just come back from Florida. Moved into this house, set up my PS4, brand spanking new, was working a decent job so I could actually spend some money on that, get the internet, get some decent internet up, and saw the WWE network just built in. And decided, you know what? I miss wrestling. Let's give it a go. I still remember the first pay-per-view I watched when we came back. It was Battleground 2015. The main event was Seth Rollins versus Brock Lesnar. And that basically was me back. I was fully back into wrestling. I think there's a few things that caught me. The Undertaker involved at the end there and Bray Wyatt. That caught me. That really caught my eye. Now, as regards going to PW Torch.
No. Let's break it down, first of all.
Absolutely.
Like, I would rather we have some deep discussions about stuff rather than being like, bang, 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 bang. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, go for it.
So with 2015 being your get back in point, which isn't a year that many people look back on with fondness, I'll put it that way. If you had discovered the wrestling you discovered it in 2015, which by this point WWE was the only game in town, really.
Yeah.
If you discovered it as a kid, do you think you'd be as hooked as you were back like in 2015 because you had that existing fandom?
Absolutely, yes. When I first started watching, I had access to WCW for free. I just never watched it. I was never interested. There were friends at school. Because we were kids and we wrestled, we used to just be wrestlers. And we'd wrestle each other and create characters. I always somehow ended up being the referee, and I seemed to quite enjoy it, even though I did take a lot of chokeslams because of it. But because there was a lot of people who watched WCW, and they were always saying, "Oh, you should check this out. It's got this person. It's got that person." I had no idea who Hulk Hogan was. I had no idea who Kevin Nash was. I had no idea who the Ultimate Warrior was.
That's so weird to say, but I am in the same boat as you. It's like so weird, isn't it? Like where you go, because you miss out on an entire generation. It's like, wait, what? But continue, sorry.
I even had no idea who Bret Hart was. And looking back, as I did later on, WrestleMania 12's main event stuck with me for a long time. So even when coming back in 2015, what hooked me was certain individuals. I mentioned Bray Wyatt there. I have to mention Bray Wyatt again.
Yeah.
These entrants caught me as someone who was really interested in Kane, really interested in certain occult elements when I first started watching. That was good for me. And Bray Wyatt was perfect. He just got my attention and held it. In addition to that, Seth Rollins. Seeing a man backflip out of German suplexes was just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Brock, not so much, and still very much not so much for Brock. The rest of the card, I can't even remember in all that much detail. But I remember Bray, and I very much remember Seth Rollins.
I'll have to pull up the Battleground card, but if I remember correctly, there's a John Cena Kevin Owens match on that card.
There is a John Cena Kevin Owens match. I skipped it.
Really?
Yep. Here's a thing that I should probably mention early on, and I've said this a lot in my live streams. I am not a wrestling fan, despite being a wrestling fan. Okay. The actual in-ring action is the least important thing for me. I couldn't care less about 5-star matches. Couldn't care less about all the moves and the chain wrestling. I'm here for the stories. I'm a product of the Attitude Era. I'm here for the Mark Henry and Mae Young having a hand. I'm here for Crash Holly being a super heavyweight Houdini of hardcore. That's what I'm most interested in. So John Cena, Kevin Owens, no interest whatsoever.
Fair enough. So as we move on, does your YouTube channel launch first, or does your work with Pro Wrestling Torch launch first?
Pro Wrestling Torch launched first. So in 2017, I've been a writer for a long time, just to be clear on that. I've been essentially a writer since I was 6 years old. I've been putting together fantasy series. I've got a few novels self-published out there in the ether, as it were. So I've always been a writer. That's my calling, as it were. So right at the beginning of 2017, I thought to myself, okay, I'm a writer and I'm a wrestling fan. Let's see if I can make something of this. And I started reaching out to places. I reached out to quite a number of places. I remember spending a while trying to just sign into cage side seats and just see if I could make something there because it got my attention. Wade Keller is not only the first person to get back to me, he was the only person to get back to me. And you've got to remember that at this time, I had 60 followers on Twitter. Nobody had ever heard of me. And I sent a few messages out to Wade Keller and said, here's what I want to write. He was attracted to the idea of the Roman Reigns-ometer, which essentially is just a comedy series looking at all the odds Roman has to overcome and in many ways mocking everything involved. I remember a long-running joke where we were talking about baking tips that The Undertaker had given me. I go a bit strange, and I think the whole British sarcasm comes through. And that's definitely how I started for PW Torch. It wasn't news. It wasn't anything like that. I've actually never written any news for PW Torch. I've only ever written comedy articles and podcasts.
So why do you think your comedy resonated with Wade so much?
I'm honestly not sure, but he was very reassuring when I first started. I think because I was fairly unknown, quite a young writer, as it were, compared. I think a lot of the time, and I really do believe this with Wade, he sees more than I see in myself, as it were.
Yeah.
When I was paired up with Nick for Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure, the podcast that we do, it was a case of, I've never met this guy. How do you know we'll get on? And Wade was just saying to us, oh, you'll get on. You'll definitely get on. And we do. We get comparisons to the two Muppets who just mock the show at all times.
Is that the two old men?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We get that comparison, and it's great fun. So I do think Wade maybe saw more than I did at the time. And honestly, I think he was just happy to get something weekly that was a bit different, because you don't see a lot of comedy in wrestling.
No.
Wrestling articles, wrestling journalism, I should say. You do see a lot of comedy in wrestling.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So, as you write for Pro Wrestling Torch at this time, how did you have to submit let's put it this way, for any writers that want to get into wrestling writing, what was the interview process like? Did you have to submit an article that you'd written in the past, or was it the sort of thing where you just sent a DM?
So it was a bit of both. I sent an email first. It took him a little while to get back because Wade Keller is the busiest man in the known world.
Yeah.
But when he did get back, we had quite a quick back and forth conversation, because once he responds, you're a priority. At that point, he asked me to submit some writing, and I submitted some work from ultimate-guitar.com, where I previously written some music theory articles, analysis, some fiction stuff in there as well, way back in the day, as it were. Yeah, ultimateguitar.com is a website I worked for quite a while. Even held a festival, a brief music festival here in the UK.
Oh, wow.
To keep myself busy. So I submitted some stuff from that. He asked for a sample. So I sent him what would have been the first installment of Roman Reigns Ometer based on the Raw that week. And he edited it. He looked at it and said, okay, so that's gone live on the website. When are you sending the next one? And
really?
It's been that way
was
ever
it that
since.
Quick sort of thing?
It was. I don't know if he was that impressed or so. I don't know if the bar wasn't as high as maybe I felt it was in the initial approach, because I was doing something quite different. I don't know, but for some reason he liked what he saw, and that's how it started.
Okay, so then what are you currently doing for Pro Wrestling Torch?
At the moment, Pro Wrestling Torch, we are doing a weekly podcast in the VIP section, which is Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure, where we basically just go a little bit off script as an hour-long podcast. And for a lot of the recent shows, we did an hour-long talk about when NXT moved to NXT 2.0, what that meant, and that we both felt it was necessary. This week, as an example, we looked at all the individual WWE Championship belts, which ones are elevated, which ones are in good positions, and just how bad the WWE Championship has gotten. But some of our most successful ones were a career retrospective for The Undertaker, one for Triple H as well.
Mm-hmm. So, and then how does your YouTube channel then get launched?
The YouTube channel, I've had it for a while, but never really used it. I think it was near the end of 2019. I never felt confident as a in front of camera guy.
Okay.
Really never felt confident. I look, there is a strange thing where there's very few mirrors in my house, so I don't have to look at myself. And that's how I live. That's how it is. At some point, I'm looking at what everyone else is doing, and I'm thinking to myself, I could do this if I was only confident enough to do it. And I spoke to some people about launching live elements for PW Torch, relaunching the PW Torch YouTube and the like. And there was interest, but it would be a lot of commitment, and there weren't that many people involved really looking to help. So it would have been just me. So I thought to myself, well, the only way I'm going to do it is if I just do it. So right after TLC 2019, I picked up my phone and I did a selfie recording for about 2 minutes, a little tiny review of TLC 2019, and that got 90 views, 11 subscribers, and I've basically been doing it ever since, to varying degrees.
Fair enough. So what are some of the biggest, and some of them might sound obvious, but some of the biggest differences that you found transitioning from writing to on-camera work?
Well, what I'm really enjoying most about the freelancing and the on-camera work is my own schedule. For a long time with other websites that I've worked for, I would get pestered by people just like, oh, you haven't written anything in a couple of days. Is everything okay? Yeah, I'm fine. And if it was news, it'd be a case of, okay, you need to find some news. You need to go and find some news. And it got annoying.
Yeah.
And it really started to grate. And then occasionally it was, I'd get sent a message from a different website, and it'd be a case of, okay, do you want to do the early SummerSlam predictions? It's February. Well, yeah, but do you want to do the early SummerSlam predictions? No, I don't want to do that. Why would anyone do that?
Apparently that sounds so stupid.
Apparently it gets views. And they really do. I've never understood the clickbait element of wrestling journalism, but I think that's my biggest advantage in being a freelancer and being separate from that, is that I don't have to worry about that. I can be quite tongue-in-cheek. I can set my own schedule. And for the longest time, I was the sort of the face on the Facebook and YouTube side of Sportskeeda.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started there, we were doing a weekly wrestling podcast. We had about 1.2 thousand subscribers. About a year after I started working on that, they had about 10,000. So I was very, very proud of that. And what we were able to achieve there with their SEO team working really hard to make sure everything worked. Learned a lot of lessons from them. So when I eventually did step away from that and start working on my own stuff, I feel I already had the lessons. I already had the information. And I just wanted to take things into my own hands, make my own money, and just give it a chance.
Fair enough. So if we break it down, what is like some of the, I know you spoke about it a bit, but what is some of the advantages you feel like you have as a freelancer? And then what is some of the maybe disadvantages you feel like you have as a freelancer?
At first, it was mostly financial disadvantages. I was in a moderately privileged position at previous websites and the like. And in fact, I'm now with PW Torch because I have the PW Torch name behind me. There is a difficulty in building your own name when you're starting from absolute scratch. Whereas when I started with PW Torch, oh, he's a PW Torch guy. And it got a little bit of attention. And for example, moments like this where people would reach out and be like, okay, just let's talk about this.
Yeah.
That was a big advantage. And of course, when you start on YouTube, you need 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours before you get paid even a penny. Whereas Twitch, thankfully, it's only 50 followers. So it can be quite advantageous to at least start on Twitch and then move over. The biggest advantage for me is controlling what I'm doing. I nearly said controlling my narrative, but it kind of is.
Don't say that, please.
Kind of is, because I set my titles, I set my descriptions. I've learned about SEO. I'm learning what content works, and I can commit to the workload that I manage, which is about 5 hours a week. That's all it is, because I do have a full-time day job in order to pay the bills, as it were. But it's very advantageous knowing that, okay, I can manage 5 hours a week. I can do a SmackDown watch party and then 3-hour-long shows during the rest of it. So I'm able to say to certain people who are trolling, you're gone. I'm able to say to people, I need you to source this. And every now and then I'm able to curse a little bit, which is also fun.
Yeah. So then if someone wants to be a freelance writer like your good self, what is the biggest piece of advice you would give that person?
Well, it depends on location. First and foremost, if you're looking to be a freelance writer, the biggest job is to know what you want to write before you start writing it. So as an example, in the UK, we have something called the Writers and Artists Yearbook, which has massive collections of the names of agents and names of connections for magazines and the like. Just get started. Just literally start. Don't be afraid. Even if it's terrible, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to say, no, try again later. So try again later. Just don't be afraid when it comes to stuff like that. That's how to start building your name. When it comes to YouTube and the like, there is a lot of copying that you have to do, but there is a lot of really great resources out there. There's a vidIQ plugin that goes into YouTube that's really handy. There is a Stream Steam, which is a YouTube channel I've been looking into quite a lot, that gives a lot of good advice. And as much as anything, as long as you go in with an open mind, a lot of good things can come of it. My moderator, my first ever follower on Twitch is called Ed Fries. He works with Love Wrestling CA now and Ring Scoops. And he basically asked me at some point to not just do new shows, let's do a Raw watch party. And I didn't really want to. And I had so much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun. You got to come out of the shell every now and then and just dare a little bit.
Okay, fair enough. What is your ultimate goal as maybe a writer or a presenter when it comes to your career?
As a presenter, and I think that's a really good word that I would use, is just to go full time. just the ability to set my schedule in that way, the ability to create the content I enjoy. My hope is to eventually have sort of 3 strands: Colohue Wrestling, Colohue Football, Colohue Gaming.
Have you set up Colohue Gaming yet?
Not as of yet. It's in the pipeline, but I haven't done a lot of gaming content recently. I'm still setting up some technical aspects.
By the time this goes out, you may have set it up.
I may have set it up. Yes. In which case, I'll still be using the same Twitch channel, but I will be in its entirely separate, its own YouTube channel, and so on and so forth. Colohue Gaming, definitely something that's coming in the near future. And there's plenty more that I'm building at the moment. When it comes to writing, though, I know what I want to write. I've been writing it for a very long time. The day will eventually come.
Okay. So, but when it comes to like wrestling writing, do you want to maybe work for other sites? Do you want to maybe have your own site? What's your goal, basically?
I can see my own site happening. There's a number of people who visit my streams regularly, who jump in and help out, who would be huge assets and advantages when it comes to setting up something. I want to set up a business that essentially means my success can be shared.
Yeah.
I don't want to be... The amount of times I've been approached and people have said to me, okay, we want you to write this about wrestling. I'm like, okay, so what's the rate? Oh, there's no rate. It's for the exposure. No. Just plain no. Just absolutely not. Wrestling is the only part of journalism where that's actually a problem.
Are you one of those people that I'll put it this way, Comrade uses the phrase where if you want me to do something, add some money to it, sort of thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
Fair enough. So yeah. I appreciate you doing this. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, no worries when it comes to that. For appearances like this, that's a different situation for me. Like, I'm happy to jump in, I'm happy to help out. There's a mutual benefit here.
Yeah.
But when it comes to someone saying to me, okay, every week we want you to write a Raw review, it means you have to stay up until 4 a.m. and then submit it within the next half hour. Well, you better be willing to pay.
Yeah. So,
otherwise, I'm not disturbing my day. This doesn't disturb me in any way, shape, or form. I can slot this in really nicely.
No. One thing, and I appreciate that. Like, this has been a lot of fun so far. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, thank you.
So, what is your routine like as someone that lives in the UK to sort of make sure you're taking care of yourself, but also make sure you're covering the wrestling, which, as you and I both know, is at stupid times for us in the UK.
Yes, it does. So Monday Night Raw airs at 1 a.m. over here. There was a period in which I did Raw watch parties. That is no longer the case. I simply cannot justify it working a full-time job. That said, I do still do SmackDown shows. So I stay up till 3 a.m. on a Friday night. But I think as much as anything, when you're an independent and when you work live, there's a level of access that you get from people, which essentially means if I go onto my Discord now and I say to the people in there, guys, going to be no show tonight, they'll be absolutely fine with that. That is very different from when you're working for someone.
Yeah.
Very, very different. And that's one of the biggest advantages is the benefit of the doubt that you get from viewers.
Fair enough. So then what do you have to do when you're doing like these SmackDown parties? Do you have to make sure you get a couple of hours sleep beforehand? Do you have to power through? Like, what's your routine like in that sense?
It really depends what I've got on the day. If there's a football match or something, I tend to forget to nap, and that becomes a problem, especially when you consider the 10 p.m. Friday night show is a news show. That's spoiler warning. Mm-hmm. So I still do a 10 to 11 news show. So usually I would go for a nap in between the gap. But at the same time,
12 to 1, maybe.
Pretty much. But sometimes I do forget. Sometimes I'm doing something else. Sometimes I've forgotten to do the dishes. So I go downstairs and I wash up and I'm a bit more energetic then. There are times, particularly when I was doing Raw watch parties, that I'd rely a bit too much on energy drinks. And I would just be a zombie for basically the entirety of the next day. WrestleMania, I tend to end up with like 9 days of watch party, just straight on. So it's a good thing that I've got a job at the moment where I can take the time off that I need at the times that I need it. That being the full-time day job, as it were.
Yeah, I get you.
But yeah, it has a toll. It takes a toll on you. It really does.
You talked about it being the benefit of the doubt there from viewers. Why do you feel like you get the benefit of the doubt quite a bit?
I feel like because it's live, there is an element of access, an element of friendship. There is the feel quite often that you just sat down in a pub having a drink with someone.
Yeah.
That's the vibe that I get from it. When it comes to a watch party, there are two things that you have going on at any one time. There is the chat and there is the show. And there's a juggling act there. What do you prioritize? I read out every comment that I get, every single one. Now, there are times when I've got 60, 70 viewers in across YouTube and Twitch, and I start to lose track because you do. But I try my best to comment, to at least respond to every single comment. As long as people feel like you're there and you're listening, they're more than willing to be there and listen to you, in my experience.
Okay. So as we look at wrapping this up, because I do want to be respectful of your time, we're going to go into a segment that I call generic questions. For those of you that have seen my videos before, you'll know this is where I ask my guests their favorite match, their favorite pay-per-view of all time, their favorite tag team, their favorite wrestler or superstar, and their favorite entrance theme. Basically, this is where I say to them, all the questions you get answered on Twitter on a daily basis, you'll now have a place to go, look, I've answered this, go watch this. So what's your favorite match of all time, Tom?
It is the main event of WrestleMania 12 between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. I just love everything about it. There is just enough drama to keep me hyped up. It sort of flies in the face of everything I said before because it's a 60-minute actual wrestling
I was
match.
just going to say that.
But it's Shawn Michaels. The man is the element of drama, and it's just perfect because you know so much now about what Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels were actually going through backstage during that time and after that time. It just, you know, there's a lot of tension simmering under the surface, and that's just exciting to me.
Favorite pay-per-view of all time?
2019 Royal Rumble. We open with Asuka versus Becky Lynch. We have the Usos versus Miz and Shane McMahon. We can gloss over that. We then have Ronda Rousey versus Sasha Banks. We have Becky Lynch winning the Royal Rumble. We have Brock Lesnar versus Finn Balor. AJ Styles versus Daniel Bryan. And finishing up with Seth Rollins winning the Men's Rumble. For me, as much as I still love SummerSlam 98, that was my first one. It had the ladder match between The Rock and Triple H.
Isn't that like the one also as well, where it's like, I can't remember the tagline for the Steve Austin Undertaker match, but it's that one, isn't it?
Yeah, there was Steve Austin, The Undertaker. I can't remember the tagline either, to be honest. But Royal Rumble 2019, basically, as soon as I finished watching it, it became the favorite, and it's been stuck with me ever since. It's just a perfect show, top to bottom.
Fair enough. Favorite wrestler or superstar of all time?
Triple H, no question. I was initially caught onto Kane, as it were, and that transitioned, the WrestleMania that followed, to Triple H when China turned from heel to face, and then Triple H and China turned from face to heel against X-Pac, and they were working against Kane, and Triple H just became my guy from there on, and he has been ever since. Having met and interviewed the man, it was an absolute dream come true.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got a picture with him afterwards from the actual
Where was this
the
then?
conversations. This was in Blackpool, in fact. It was for the NXT UK takeover in Blackpool. Though I've also met him in Cardiff, but that was more of a media scrum, and so on and so forth. There are a couple of times I've met the man individually, but never for a prolonged period. And yeah, afterwards I just was on the phone to my sister, just marking out like crazy.
Fair enough.
Didn't feel very professional, but definitely needed to happen.
Nah, I've there's been a few times with doing the call interviews that I do where these are people that I've grown up watching, and it's like, I get to interview these cool people. Do you know what I'm saying?
I know what you mean, yeah.
Like, even cool people like your good self, my friend.
Oh, thank you.
So, favorite tag team of all time?
X-Pac and Kane. I never even think about that one. Kane, for me, was that big deal at the time. I've just mentioned there about the whole Triple H storyline, Triple H turning on X-Pac. End result was X-Pac and Kane, and the odd couple element, the green and red. Kane being the monster and X-Pac being this little tiny guy. And as a relatively small guy myself, X-Pac was my guy for a while as well. And I don't know, that tag team resonated with me forever.
Okay. Favorite theme song of all time?
Triple H, It's My Time.
Okay.
The one before the game, that when he first turned properly heel, you knew the big push was coming. And I have sung that one so much when playing No Mercy or WrestleMania 2000. I've just had a great time with it.
If we weren't going to get the copyright strike, I'd ask you to do it now, but I like my channel. Thank you very much.
I've also, as a slight aside, I have screwed up my ankle several times rocking out to the theme song of Tomohiro Ishii for any New Japan fans.
I know exactly which one you mean. So as we wrap this up with my wrap-up question, the question I have for you before we do that is, do you view your career as a success as a wrestling contributor?
So far, yes. I'm very proud of what I've been able to achieve. Very proud of the sharing of the load that I'm doing at the moment. I'm currently in the process of literally setting up a formal business and hiring people from which they will benefit, and I'll be able to contribute to them and they'll be able to contribute with us. I'm very proud of that aspect of it. I'm very proud of some of the reports that I've made over the years. There's some quite recent ones. The only one that I'm aware of to report Becky Lynch returning before SummerSlam when she actually did. And little things like that. Some of them in particular really stand out for me, and I'm very proud of what I've been able to achieve personally. Even if it's just a few cheap laughs in a Roman Reigns-ometer, I'm very happy to just know I got a few cheap laughs out of someone.
Fair enough. So as we wrap this up, Tom, the question that I end all my interviews on is with YouTube, with podcasting, with social media in general, and with writing in general. We're all sort of going to live forever in some sort of way. So what is one video or podcast that you're like, don't go back and watch that, I've grown a lot since then? What is one that you're like, if you want to know my body of work, go and check that out? And then what is one article in your case that you're like, don't go out and check that out? And then what is one that you're really proud of that you want the good people to check out?
Okay. So if for a video, let's go back to the very first video I did, that one from TLC was all one take. I was not a confident speaker at the time, certainly not to where I am now. I was shaky as hell because I was holding it in my hand. It was just not good work by anyone involved. And by anyone involved, I mean entirely myself.
Yeah.
Going forwards, even shortly afterwards, my third video on YouTube was just after Luke Harper was released, and I was saying where he was going to end up going and that AEW had already called. So I was quite proud of that one, even though it was still me building.
Yeah.
And still me building in that regard. If I'm talking articles, I have to go quite far back. There is, I'll go back to the Ultimate Guitar days before wrestling, when I first started writing fiction on the website, and my God, I did not know how to write a column. I did not know what I was doing. The flow was all wrong. It's just terrible. But if we're talking articles that I'm very proud of, probably my proudest article is a report that I made in, I want to say June 2018. Sasha Banks was getting a lot of stick at the time because she just essentially left at WrestleMania, lost.
Was this after the Mania match with Bayley?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And the reporting question was the first one that I was able to put out there and say to people, yeah, she's not walked out. That hasn't happened. She is taking a break. Everyone in WWE is behind the break. And in fact, Vince McMahon absolutely loves this woman. So let's all calm down.
Mm-hmm.
Every now and then you will see articles that are put out, which are basically just, can we all just calm down a little bit? Can we all just calm down? Later on today, I've got a spoiler warning where we're going to talk about, oh yeah, Roman Reigns not leaving. Because I've seen so many of those YouTube posts like, Roman Reigns leaving, exclamation mark, question mark, exclamation mark, question mark.
Because that's what I was just going to say. And for those of the people that are wondering where in the timeline we're recording this, because this won't be going up for a few months, we're recording this the day after WrestleMania Backlash 2022. So where can the good people find you, Tom, as we wrap this up?
You can find me on Twitter at Colohue, that is Colohue, and you can find me on YouTube and Twitch under Tom Colohue. We are based on, depends like when you're watching this. At the moment, I have just over 1.1 thousand subscribers. I've gained about 400 in the last 4 months. It's been incredible. So with this all set up, whenever you're watching, by all means, check in, see how far we've got.
It's well worth doing, guys. So if you guys like this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish. Follow me on Twitter at Tom Talks Rubbish. Follow bodyslam.net for my show with Cassidy Haynes, the Wrestle Watch Pod. Follow TTR Clips for clips from my interviews. And overall, guys, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this video. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.